Picture this. You're alone in the wilderness. It's been 3 weeks since the blizzard trapped you here. 3 weeks since you've eaten anything substantial. Your hunting party, they're gone. Some wandered off into the snow, delirious. Others simply didn't wake up one morning. Now it's just you, and the cold, and the hunger. The hunger that gnaws at your insides like a living thing. The hunger that makes you think thoughts you never imagined you'd think. The hunger that whispers to you in the darkness. This isn't just a story. This is a warning that's echoed through the frozen forests of North America for thousands of years. A warning from the Algonquian peoples, the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Innu, who knew that the real monsters aren't born from the supernatural. They're born from us, from the darkest choices we make when we're desperate, when we're alone, when we're starving.
Let me tell you about the Wendigo, and I promise you, after today, you'll never look at winter forests the same way again. Before we go any further, you need to understand something. The Wendigo isn't some dusty old legend that people stopped believing in centuries ago. This creature was feared, truly feared, well into the 20th century. People were executed over this. Communities were torn apart. And even today, there are those who won't speak its name out loud. Why? Because the Wendigo is what happens when a human being crosses a line that should never, ever be crossed.
So, what does it look like? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the tallest person you know, now double that height. 15 feet of gaunt, skeletal horror, skin so pale and stretched that you can see every bone, every vein, pulsing underneath. The creature is emaciated, impossibly thin, and yet it towers over you, its body all wrong, like something that should be dead but refuses to lie down. Its eyes, God, its eyes, sunken so deep into its skull that they look like holes into nothing, but they're not nothing. They glow. They burn with a hunger so intense you can feel it crawling on your skin when it looks at you.
And its mouth, imagine your worst nightmare about teeth. Yellowed, broken fangs jutting from jaws that never close properly because the lips are tattered or gone entirely, ripped away by something you don't want to think about. Some say it has antlers, like a deer, but wrong, twisted, covered in ice and blood. But here's the thing that really gets you, the thing that survivors, in stories, always mention first: the smell. Death, rot, decay, the stench of spoiled meat and old graves, so powerful it makes you gag, so pervasive it seems to coat the inside of your mouth. That's how you know one is near. Your nose tells you before your eyes do. And when you smell that smell, you need to run. Because the Wendigo is always, always hungry. Now, you might be thinking, okay, scary monster, got it. But you're missing the point. You're missing what makes the Wendigo different from every other creature in folklore. The Wendigo's hunger isn't just intense, it's impossible. Imagine being hungry, really hungry, but knowing that no matter what you eat, you'll only get hungrier. That's the Wendigo's curse. Every victim it consumes makes it grow larger, but also makes its hunger grow. It's trapped in an endless cycle of consumption and craving. Eating makes it worse, but it can't stop eating. Think about that for a second. Really think about it.
It's a perfect trap, a hell of its own making that it can never escape. And here's where it gets truly disturbing. The Wendigo can mimic human voices. Your mother's voice calling you from the darkness. Your child crying for help just beyond the trees. Your friend shouting that they've found shelter, found food, just come this way, just a little further. Indigenous hunters learned to never ever trust voices in the forest during winter, no matter how real they sounded, no matter who they seemed to be. Because if you followed that voice, you'd find something waiting for you in the darkness, something with rotting breath and broken teeth, and a hunger that would never, ever stop.
But here's the question that should be keeping you up at night. Where do Wendigos come from? And the answer is going to disturb you more than anything I've said so far. They come from us. Wendigos aren't born, they're made. And they're made from human beings just like you and me. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1823. You're part of a hunting party, deep in the Canadian wilderness. A storm rolls in, bigger than anyone expected. You're cut off, trapped. The game has scattered. Your supplies are running low, then gone. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into a month.
People start dying. The cold takes the old man first, then the sickness takes two more. You bury them in shallow graves in the frozen ground. But you're still alive. You're still hungry. So hungry that it's all you can think about. Your stomach has stopped growling. It's gone past that into a constant, aching emptiness that fills your entire world. And then you remember. The bodies you buried, they're still fresh. The cold preserved them. And you think, just this once, just to survive, just enough to give you strength to make it back to the village. No one would have to know. It would be between you and the frozen ground. This is the moment, the threshold, the point of no return.
Because according to Algonquian tradition, the moment you make that choice, the moment you taste human flesh, you invite something in. A spirit, a darkness, the Wendigo. At first, maybe nothing happens. Maybe you make it back to the village. Maybe you think you got away with it, that you did what you had to do to survive. But then the hunger comes back, and it never goes away. You eat, but you're not satisfied. You eat more, but it's never enough. Your body starts to change. You grow taller. Your skin becomes pale and tight. Your heart, they say your heart literally turns to ice, freezes solid in your chest. And the hunger, God, the hunger consumes everything else, every thought, every feeling, every memory of who you used to be, until there's nothing left but the hunger. And the thing that used to be you goes back into the woods, seeking the only thing that can feed it now. Even though it knows, somewhere in whatever's left of its consciousness, that eating will only make the hunger worse. Do you understand now why this legend is so important? Why it was passed down with such deadly seriousness? This wasn't just a campfire story to scare children. This was cultural survival technology. Think about the communities that created this legend. They lived in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Winter lasted for months. Isolation was common. Starvation was a real threat. And in those conditions, the temptation, that terrible, unthinkable temptation, could become very real. The Wendigo legend said, no matter what, no matter how desperate you are, no matter if it means your death, some lines cannot be crossed, because the cost of crossing them is worse than death. The cost is your humanity itself. But it went deeper than that. The Wendigo wasn't just about literal cannibalism. It was about any kind of selfish excess, about putting your own survival above the community, about hoarding when others were starving, about consuming more than your share, about letting greed and hunger rule you. In a culture where survival depended on sharing, on cooperation, on putting the community first, the Wendigo represented the ultimate betrayal. It was individualism taken to its monstrous extreme. It was what happened when you forgot that you were part of something larger than yourself.
Some elders would point to someone who was being selfish, who was hoarding supplies or refusing to help others, and say, the Wendigo is taking them. Not literally, not yet, but as a warning. You're on a dangerous path. Turn back before it's too late. Because once the transformation begins, once you truly go Wendigo, there's no coming back.
And here's where this story gets even darker. Because this wasn't just mythology. There are documented cases, actual historical records of what anthropologists called Wendigo psychosis. Imagine this. You're in your village, it's winter. One of your neighbors starts acting strange. He's withdrawn, won't eat with the family, keeps staring at people with this look in his eyes that makes your skin crawl. He starts talking about the hunger, how he can't stop thinking about it, how normal food doesn't satisfy him anymore. The community watches, waits, hopes it will pass.
But then he starts talking about the thoughts, the urges, how he's afraid of what he might do. Some people in this state begged their own families to kill them, to tie them up, to put them down before the transformation was complete. These weren't people trying to fool anyone. They genuinely believed they were turning into Wendigos. The fear was so intense, so real to them, that it became a psychological crisis. They would refuse to eat, convinced that eating would make the hunger worse. They would isolate themselves, terrified they might harm someone. There are records from the 1800s and early 1900s of individuals being executed by their own communities after being declared Wendigos. From an outside perspective, these might look like tragic cases of mental illness, but to the communities involved, these were spiritual emergencies. A person was transforming into a monster, and if they waited too long, people would die. Think about the weight of that decision. Having to kill someone you've known your whole life, maybe someone you love, because you truly believe that the alternative is worse. Let me tell you a traditional story, the kind that would be told during the long winter nights when families huddled together and the darkness pressed close. That's the setting for the story of the Wendigo.
There was once a young man, a skilled hunter, who went out alone to trap fur animals. He should have returned in 3 days. He didn't. A week passed. 2 weeks. The family held out hope, but as the days turned into weeks, they began to mourn. Then, on the 30th day, he returned. At first, they were overjoyed. They prepared a feast. They welcomed him home. But something was wrong. He barely spoke. He wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And when they set food before him, he ate like a starving animal. But even after consuming more than any man should be able to eat, he still seemed hungry.
His sister noticed he'd grown taller. His mother noticed his skin looked strange, pale and tight. His father noticed he'd started smelling like something dead. Late that night, the young man's grandfather, a shaman, went to his tent. He found the young man awake, staring at nothing, tears streaming down his face. "It's too late for me," the young man whispered. "I can feel it, the ice in my chest, the hunger that won't stop. Grandfather, you have to end this before I hurt someone." The grandfather looked at his grandson, this boy he'd taught to hunt, to track, to survive in the wilderness, and he had to make a choice that no one should ever have to make.
The stories don't always tell you what happened next. Some versions say the grandfather performed a ritual that drove out the Wendigo spirit, just barely in time. Others say he did what had to be done, and the village mourned two losses that night: the grandson who died in the woods, and the grandson who came back. But all versions of the story end the same way, with a warning. Watch for the signs. Watch yourselves. Watch each other. Because the Wendigo doesn't announce itself with thunder and lightning. It creeps in quietly when you're weak, when you're desperate, when you're alone. And by the time you notice it's there, it might already be too late.
You might be thinking, okay, but this is all ancient history. This is about survival situations I'll never face. What does a Wendigo have to do with my life? Everything. Because the Wendigo isn't really about cannibalism. It never was. Cannibalism was just the most extreme example of the real danger. The Wendigo is about what happens when hunger, any kind of hunger, becomes the only thing that matters. We have social media designed to be addictive, feeding on our hunger for validation, for attention, for connection. But it never satisfies. It just makes us hungrier. We scroll and scroll and scroll, consuming content, but we're never full. We have people working themselves to death, sacrificing their health, their families, their lives for just a little bit more. More money, more status, more success. And it's never enough. That's the Wendigo. That's what it's always been. It's the hunger that grows when you feed it. It's the appetite that consumes everything else. It's what happens when you forget that some hungers should be starved, not fed. The Algonquian peoples understood something we've forgotten, that human beings are capable of transforming into monsters. Not metaphorically, actually transforming. Oh, we might not grow 15 feet tall or sprout antlers, but we can become creatures driven by appetite alone, by consumption alone, by hunger alone. And when that happens, we lose our humanity just as surely as any Wendigo. So what do we do with this story? What do we do with this ancient warning from the frozen north? We listen to it. We recognize the hunger when it starts to grow, the hunger for more, more, more. Whether it's money, status, attention, power, or something else entirely. We recognize when consumption stops bringing satisfaction and starts only bringing the need to consume more. We remember that we're part of a community, part of an ecosystem, part of something larger than ourselves. And when we start thinking only of our own survival, our own success, our own satisfaction, that's when we need to stop and listen for footsteps in the snow. We understand that some appetites, once indulged, become insatiable, and we have the courage to starve them instead of feeding them. The old stories say that a Wendigo can never be satisfied, that once the transformation is complete, the creature is trapped forever in its hunger. But they also say, some of them, that in the very beginning, in those first moments when the spirit is trying to get in, you still have a choice. You can say no. You can choose your humanity over your appetite. You can choose community over consumption. You can choose to stay human. It's winter now as I record this. Somewhere in the northern forests, snow is falling. In those dark woods, the old stories say the Wendigo still walks. Maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. But here's what I know. The hunger is real. The choice is real. The transformation is real. And every single day, in 1,000 different ways, we all stand at that threshold, that moment in the frozen wilderness when we decide who we're going to be, what we're going to become. The Wendigo isn't just a monster from the past, it's a mirror from the past,
held up to the present, asking us a simple question.
When you're hungry, really hungry for whatever it is you crave, what will you be willing to consume to feed that hunger? And will you ever be able to stop? Think about that the next time you hear something calling your name from the darkness. Think about that the next time you feel the hunger that just won't quit, no matter what you feed it. Because the Wendigo is always hungry, and it's always, always looking for company.
Thanks for listening. If this story affected you, if it made you think, hit that like and subscribe button so my stories return to you. Because there are more stories like this, more warnings from cultures around the world, more ancient wisdom wrapped in terrifying tales. Next time, we're going somewhere even darker, somewhere the Wendigo doesn't dare go. Until then, stay human.